Now on Eurosport, we head across the Atlantic into the American zone. In the fast lane now at over 300 kilometers per hour, we're in the American zone with karts.
With Hasseröder, the German premium beer. And LG Electronics, digitally yours.
Sweden's Kenny Breck leads the FedEx Championship Series with 4 races to go, but last year's champion Gilda Ferran is closing after their high-speed wheel-to-wheel dice at Rockingham, which saw victory for Team Penske. Now we come to Houston, and De Ferran is confident. Third place here in 2000 sent him on his way to the title. He'll be out for more of the same today. The oval tracks in Europe, we now turn our attention to street circuits in the USA. Hello and welcome. I'm Ben Edwards with Jeremy Shaw as we've come to Houston for the Texaco Havoline Grand Prix. And Gilda Ferran will start today on pole position as he continues his battle in the championship with Kenny Breck. But Kenny Breck's not far back. He'll be starting in third place.
And look at De Ferran, just 5 points behind now. It was 6 points coming into the weekend, but De Ferran narrowed that by 1 point by getting the pole yesterday, and he wants to reduce that margin further by the end of the afternoon, Ben.
Let's take a look at how they start today's race then. Gilda Ferran taking his 4th pole of the season, alongside him Bruno Junqueira, his 3rd front row start of this year. Kenny Breck starts in 3rd place, and alongside him Elio Castroneves, always fast on the streets.
Alex Tagliani was on the pole for the last street circuit in Vancouver, still looking for his first win. Dario Franchitti won here in '98. On row 4 of the grid, the Kiwi from New Zealand, Scott Dixon, and Cristiano D'Amata running much better for Newman Haas this weekend.
9th on the grid is Maurizio Gugelmin, and alongside him Tony Kanaan, who's been in the points for the last few races. 11th is Roberto Moreno, and Michael Andretti, who won in Toronto, is alongside him.
Christian Fittipaldi, the second Newman Haas car, has been quick all weekend, but was within the slow group in qualifying. That hurt him. Tora Takagi alongside, and then behind them the 2 Adrian Fernandez cars of Adrian himself and his teammate Shinji Nakano.
17th on the grid, Oriol Servia, and alongside him Michel Jourdain, who damaged his car in qualifying. 19th on the grid, Max Papis, and 20th, Patrick Carpentier. 8th in the championship, but didn't qualify well.
Another former winner here, Paul Tracy, had to sit out the final 8 minutes of qualifying, so he's way back on the grid. Brian Herter is struggling this weekend. On row 12 of the grid, Memo Gidley, he's been off the pace, and Jimmy Vasser, or another last year's winner here, the same problem as Paul Tracy.
And finally, Casey Mears replaces Alex Zanardi at Monan Racing. Max Wilson is alongside him, the 28-year-old Brazilian, the last of our 26 cars that will take the start of today's 100-lap race. It's a 1.5 mile street course, 2.4 kilometers, and it's possible that they might make it through on just one pit stop, but they need some yellows.
Need quite a few yellows. I think we'll see most of the teams starting out with a pretty conservative strategy, trying to save fuel and then see what pans out the second half of the race.
The track is fairly straightforward. It's a series of 90-degree corners, the fastest section between turns 4 and 5.
Almost all the corners taken in second gear, with the one exception being turn 2. That's a first gear corner, and between turns 4 and 5, which is where this race will start, is the fastest part of the course, almost 180 miles an hour, Ben.
Scott Dixon has an onboard camera. He's one of several who'll be carrying onboard cameras here this afternoon as they come round now. They're going past the start-finish line here, but the start of this race, much as in mid-Ohio, takes place on the longest straight, which is actually on the back section of the track. You're looking at the 2 front row men, Bruno Junqueira on the right as we look at it there, drawing alongside Gilda Ferran.
A brilliant effort that was by Bruno Junqueira. Had some problems both on Friday and Saturday morning, 2 incidents, but he came back brilliantly to get that front row start.
Green flag on the back stretch, and here they go. Bruno Junqueira's made a great start from the outside of the front row. Watch for Gilda Ferran though, here he comes on cold tyres, being brave on the brakes there, and through he goes to take the lead, and Kenny Breck held up a little bit. Dario Franchitti might have just gained gained a little bit of ground. Well, he started in 6th place, he's up to 5th, and here comes Tagliani. Tagliani going down the inside of Kenny Breck. That's a good move. And for the championship leader, he was playing it a little defensively, but he didn't block that as effectively as he could have done, perhaps, and Tagliani's got into 3rd.
Yeah, great move there by Alex Tagliani. Remember back to that last street course race in Vancouver. Started on the pole, dominated the race, and he was once again, cruel misfortune robbed him of that first victory he so desperately wants.
Across the line in at the end of the first lap, a short lap because they start out on the back. De Ferran leads. They're very slow out of that corner. It looks almost as though they're in trouble, but it's just the slowest corner on the track in the background. Now they pick up a bit of speed. De Ferran leads from Bruno Junqueira. Alex Tagliani in 3rd. Kenny Breck in 4th. Dario Franchitti in 5th. Then it's Castroneves, Dixon, D'Amata, Gutermin, and the top 10 rounded out at the moment by Tony Kanaan. Look at the lead that Gilles de Ferran is already opening up as Kenny Breck has a little look at Alex Tagliani.
We saw how aggressive he was to win that race at Rockingham 2 weeks ago. Brilliant drive there by Gilles de Ferran, and the same sort of aggression here at the start. We'd see it was Bruno Junqueira appeared to get the jump initially at the getaway, but that great late braking move again by Gilles de Ferran, he's not to be denied, is he?
No, he's in great form at the moment, you have to say. Dominant pole position yesterday by over half a second, and yet the rest of the field was covered by a tiny amount. In fact, we had another 16 cars covered by 1 second after Gilles' performance, but he really was flying. He got some clear laps in. We're on board with 2nd place man here, Bruno Junqueira, taking us for a little look around the track. Coming up to turn 3, another of these 2nd gear 90-degree left-handers, a short burst of power up to turn 4, back on the brakes again, about 60 miles an hour through the bend itself. Now picking up the speed, picking up the gears. Fastest straight here as we build up to about 175 miles an hour and get ready to brake for turn number 5.
Already you can hardly see Gilles de Ferran. He's already through turn 5 there, and through turn 6 this sort of double apex left-hander there. So again in 2nd gear, up 1 gear into 3rd gear. Now generally if they're really on a quick lap they might get into 4th there, but not at this stage of the race with full tanks. Down again to 2nd. You see those surface changes there from asphalt to concrete and back again now to asphalt, and his last couple of corners here to lead him onto the start-finish straight to complete lap 3.
So Bruno Junqueira coming around to complete the 3rd lap. There is the gap, 1st to 2nd, then Alex Tagliani in 3rd, Kenny Breck, Dario Franchitti comes through, Castroneves is through, then it's Dixon, D'Amata, there's Gutermin, there's Tony Kanaan. No, in fact, Moreno there in the Vistion car has got ahead of Tony Kanaan, so a place change. Moreno's come up to 10th. There we are in the orange and white car. There is Roberto Moreno, the winner in Vancouver on another street track, the last street track that the kart series visited, and he's made 1 position there, and that's the way it's going to go this afternoon, picking off people one by one if you get the chance. And we'll keep an eye on some of the people who started lower down, Jeremy, because we had the likes of Paul Tracy, Jimmy Vasser and Patrick Carpentier all denied a great shot in qualifying because they had to sit out penalties and they were starting a long way back.
And what was interesting to me was the fact that that start was very much spread out. It was a very fast start, and the back of the field was really still strung out when they came up to take the green flag, so it wasn't nearly the usual shuffling of positions that we often see at the start of the race. So it's the most stage sort of settling in, kind of single file, but we can see now who's going to make a charge, who is prepared to go rich on the fuel bed and make some passes early on.
De Ferran leads by 2.3 seconds at the end of just 4 out of 100 laps. Six laps have been completed. Gilles de Ferran is still our race leader here. 2.4 seconds still his advantage. He opened up that little gap initially and he's managed to maintain that over this man, Bruno Junqueira. You can just see de Ferran turning in up ahead, but now just holding that gap fairly consistently.
That's right, the gap certainly has stabilised at around about 2.4 seconds, and Bruno Junqueira now running a tidy pace here, and he's pulled away a little bit from Alex Tagliani as well, about almost 2 seconds back to the 3rd place car of Tagliani as we come up to the start-finish straight one more time. That is the George R. Brown Convention Centre on the right, and ahead of you there in the distance was Enron Field, the local baseball stadium here where the Houston Astros have been playing host to the San Francisco Giants for the last few days, making history there too.
On board with Junqueira, you certainly get a great view of the track and of the beautiful weather conditions here this afternoon. Blue sky, not a cloud in sight, as you can see, and that's been a bit different to the last few days. There was actually rain here on Friday afternoon. And now we've got these glorious conditions. There is our race leader, Gilles de Ferran, enjoying the sunshine, but concentrating on the road. You know, there's a lot of, almost all of these corners are blind corners. There are no curves on the apexes of the corners. Concentration here, Jeremy, absolutely crucial, because you only need to be an inch or two out of line and you've clipped one of these walls.
That's very true, and you can see how bumpy it is in certain sections as well. That corner is probably one of the smoother ones, but a lot of surface changes there when you go from that asphalt to the concrete and back again. There's a lot of surface changes there and creases in that surface just make it very, very bumpy and so easy with 850 horsepower and not a whole heck of a lot of grip. It's so easy to make a mistake.
The driver's somewhat relieved that we haven't got the humidity that sometimes afflicts this part of Texas. It has in the past been a very tiring race. It's a wrestling match out there a little bit, this track, because of all these 90-degree corners and the bumps, and drivers have got out of the cars in the past here absolutely exhausted. I know de Ferran himself was very tired at the end of last year's race when he led the early stages, ended up finishing in third. We're looking at the battle further back here. This is Maurizio Gugelmin in the Nextel car. Right behind him is fellow Brazilian Roberto Moreno. Moreno has already made one place just recently. He passed Tony Kanaan. Kanaan in the background there as Moreno has a little, just moves around really. Didn't really try and overtake Gugelmin, just filling his mirrors at this point.
And this is probably one of the biggest gaps in the whole field there, in front of Gugelmin, forward to Cristiano de Matter. It's already almost 4 seconds, and that is between 8th and 9th places. We see Gugelmin there in 9th under heavy pressure from Roberto Moreno. They're running the same sort of equipment here, both Toyota-powered Reynards. Everybody uses Firestone tires, but we can see there that Moreno just cannot seem to find a way past. I'm sure if he was able to get past, I think he'd pull away pretty quickly from Gugelmin, but it's making that pass that's the difficult bit.
Well, back on board Bruno Junqueira, our second place man. You know, he had some problems earlier on. They couldn't get the fuel pressure right on this engine. This was as they were getting the car ready to go out this afternoon, but they seem to have solved that problem. The car running well. We've got 3 different engine manufacturers up in those top 3 places at the moment. We've got the Honda-powered Reynard of Gilles de Ferran leading, Junqueira in 2nd place with the Toyota engine, and Tagliani in 3rd place with Ford power. We're looking here at Carpentier, who's a lot further down. He's down in 22nd position after not getting a full qualifying session in. He had to sit some of it out for causing a red flag back in Vancouver.
Yeah, and he caused another one this weekend as well, so he had to sit out pretty much the last half of the session. He's also, I saw him after the warm-up this morning, he was struggling, he said, with excessive understeer on that car, just couldn't get out of the corners, and already in the early stages of this race, Carpentier has fallen back a couple of positions. He was passed on the opening lap by Paul Tracy, and also fairly recently by Brian Herter.
Now look at Dario Franchitti here. He's beginning to hound Kenny Breck a little bit more vigorously. Breck in the... Oh, and Breck makes a big mistake, and Franchitti goes through. What a great opportunity that was for the Scotsman. Dario snatched the opportunity. Kenny got a little bit sideways, and now he's under attack from Castroneves. Saw that mistake, and is now eager to get his Penske Reynard up past the Lola of Kenny Breck, but he can't quite do it. And well, the championship leader did not need to make that mistake. Jeremy, let's take another look here.
That's coming into turn 3, just left his braking a little bit too late, locked up the rears on those cars, and when the rear brakes locked up, the back end stepped out of line. He had to correct that slide and make sure he didn't go into the wall and regain control. And by that stage, Dario was already through, and there you can see now Kenny Breck really coming under pressure from Helio Castroneves.
That caption out of date now, because Kenny's been pushed back to 5th place by Dario Franchitti, so Franchitti's now up into 4th. Kenny Breck is 5th, Castroneves is hounding him in 6th place, and then Scott Dixon is right behind them. So for Franchitti, that was a great opportunity. You know, he always goes well at this track. Look at Castroneves, he's almost pushing Kenny Breck around turn 2. Here's where he made the mistake, a little bit tidier this time from the Swedish driver, and he gets through there smoothly, and Castroneves denied. Here's now where Castroneves needs to get on the power early, accelerate, but Breck seems to be fast out of turn 4 as well, and it doesn't allow Castroneves to get close enough under braking at turn number 5 to do something about it. So Franchitti, the winner here in 1998 in the wet, finished 2nd in 1999, crashed out last year. Well, he's now up into 4th place and chasing after Alex Tagliani. Our race leader, still by 3.4 seconds, is Gilles de Ferran. Well, this battle continues between Kenny Breck and Helio Castroneves. You can see how Franchitti's managed to get away a little bit. One of the stories of qualifying yesterday, Jeremy, was definitely the performance of Team Rahal, because Kenny Breck didn't seem to feature in the early practice sessions here. He was fast in the wet on Friday afternoon, but he didn't do an awful lot on Saturday morning. Suddenly in qualifying, that team got that car working, didn't they?
They really did. They were working on, they were trying various different things on that car over the weekend. He really didn't show his whole hand, I believe, until qualifying. But Don Halliday, he's a race engineer now for Team Rahal, the chief race engineer. And prior to working with Team Rahal, of course, he was with Team Cool Green when both Paul Tracy and Dario Franchitti won this event in 98 and 99 with Don Halliday as their chief race engineer. So he certainly has a very good handle on this racetrack, and he's transferred the knowledge he has onto this Shell Lola Ford Cosworth car of Kenny Breck. And Kenny is struggling a little bit in the early stages, but he's still running strong, and he just needs to get some good, useful haul of points here from the streets of Houston.
He does, but of course his main championship rival is the one leading this race at the moment. That is Gilles de Ferran, looking to close up, which is only a 5-point advantage in the championship for Breck at this stage. So these two continue. Breck in 5th place, Castroneves in 6th. Behind them is the top rookie driver this year, Scott Dixon. You just get a quick glimpse of the red and white car, blue crash helmet. That is the young New Zealander, and Dixon again driving well. You know, he's completed more laps than anybody else this year, and that's a pretty impressive record from a rookie driver to have been in at the finish of just about every race so far this season. Very few mistakes he's made, and remarkable when he stepped out of Indy Lights last year and made the big step up. There's Guterman, Moreno coming through in 9th and 10th. Then Canan and Fittipaldi. There's Michael Andretti 13th, Tagagi 14th. Then it's Fernandez, Nakano and Michel Jourdain in 17th. Gilles de Ferran leads on the streets of Houston after 13 laps have been completed. His gap 3.7 seconds now over Bruno Junqueira. Tagliani is 2 seconds further behind Junqueira. Then it's Franchitti, Breck and Castroneves. As we see our race leader, here he is, Gilles de Ferran, winner of that dramatic event at Rockingham in the UK last time out, just 2 weeks ago. And de Ferran was so forceful in that event to take the victory on the last corner of the last lap. And here again, he's stamping his authority in the early stages, but he knows he had this position here last year, only to be beaten by a combination of strategy and clever driving from Jimmy Vasser and Juan Montoya for Target Chip Ganassi Racing. Now we're on board with Adrian Fernandez running down in 15th position.
Coming up to turn 4 here, need to get a good exit here. This is onto the fastest part of the course, up the gears here, up to 3rd, up to 4th, up to 5th. Maybe up to 6th gear as well. Yeah, he's using all 6 gears here on the Houston Street Circuit. Now down all the way again to 2nd gear. Heavy braking there for the left-hander there. His double apex left-hander, turns 5 and turn 6. Again, a short spurt of speed here and braking again, slightly off camber here. A little bit downhill, not much elevation change here. But again, you can see that concrete surface there. Back onto asphalt again now. Left-handed again, 2 more corners to the end of the lap. There's the first one there. You can see those concrete walls absolutely there. No room for error at all on this racetrack there.
Back past the convention centre on the right, that's where the paddock is housed. It's a huge exhibition hall. That's where our commentary position is as they flash past us down into turn number 1 and then through this very tight turn 2. Pit lane exit comes out just about this part of the track, past the grandstands, and a good showing of people turning up here this afternoon in beautiful weather conditions, and then on back to turn number 4 and onto that long back stretch once again. Just a quick note, look at the front wing from this onboard camera. You'll see there are bits sticking up all over it. Well, there's been some extra bits added on by Reynard to their cars this weekend to give a little bit more front downforce, and you can see those on the front wing end plates, and Adrian, one of the cars running those here this weekend.
A variety of different little winglet configurations, both on the nose of the car, particularly on those end plates there, the outer edge of that front wing, as you were saying there, Ben, and also on the flip-ups at the back of the side pods as well. And as we watch there, Adrian Fernandez, you can see a lot of Mexican support there for Adrian Fernandez.
On board with Scott Dixon briefly, there is our race leader, Gilles de Ferran, doing everything that he wanted to do, get out in front at the start of this race, as he continues his attempt to defend his title, won last year, and his first victory of this season coming at Rockingham. There is Junqueira, the young Brazilian, who's had an up-and-down season as he came in, taking over from Juan Montoya. Tagliani, Franchitti go through. There's Kenny Breck, who's pulled away a bit from Castroneves. Then Dixon and Cristiano De Mata in the black car. Texaco Havoline sponsorship for the Texaco Havoline Grand Prix of Houston. This is a big event for this team. Carl Haas, the team boss, actually is the promoter of this event, and they have huge numbers of sponsors and guests here this weekend.
Yeah, right next to our booth, in fact, there's a big hospitality area there full of Texaco Havoline people. And Cristiano de Mata, the new in-house team has really struggled through the middle part of the season after the great start by Cristiano de Mata. But they really got lost on the setup of that car, and they've decided before the previous street course race in Vancouver to go back to basics, to go back to what worked for them at the beginning of the year. And Cristiano, in actual fact, was very quick in Vancouver, although for a variety of reasons he didn't really get to show it. But this weekend, he's been quick all the way through the weekend. Didn't qualify as well as he wanted to, but he certainly has been fast, and Cristiano de Mata and his teammate Christian Fittipaldi, for that matter, certainly back on the pace.
On board here with Jimmy Vasser, and it's been a bit of a disappointing weekend so far for last year's race winner here. I say that, although he's actually been on the pace. Most of the practice sessions, he was right up there at the top of the times, but when it came to qualifying, he was another of the guys who had to sit out 8 minutes of the qualifying session for having caused a red flag, and it really, really hurt them yesterday because there were so many red flags anyway in that session. He never got a chance to qualify properly, and he's running way down in 24th position.
Yeah, so disappointing for Jimmy Vasser. He knew he had a good car. Going into qualifying, he thought he really had a car good enough, maybe even to get the pole, but just nothing worked his way.
Now, here is Casey Mears taking over this drive from Alex Zanardi, and the news is very encouraging about Alex. He's been on the phone to journalists from his hospital in Berlin. He's going to be moved from that Berlin hospital to be in hospital nearer home very, very soon, and it's great to hear him making comments and joking about what's going on in Champ Car racing at the moment. This young man, Casey Mears, a very tough job for him to step into Alex's car and try and get a decent result here this weekend. He raced in the Indy Lights Series last year, won this race at Houston, had one Champ Car event, that was at Fontana on the Super Speedway. Very, very different kind of driving required there though, Jeremy.
Yeah, very definitely so. It was a great run for his debut in Fontana last year. He finished 4th for Team Rahal. Beginning of this year, wasn't able to get a ride in Champ Cars, did get a ride in the Indy Racing League, did the first 3 races. Some pretty disappointing results for Gowers Racing. Didn't qualify at Indianapolis.
Look at the fastest lap so far. Gilles de Ferran has the top 2 fastest laps, but Scott Dixon running down in 7th place is then showing his pace as well in car number 18 as we come through at 20 laps completed. Well, we're on lap 20. Gilles de Ferran's lead up to 5.1 seconds now. A big advantage over Bruno Junqueira. Tagliani, Franchitti and Breck make up the top 5.
Kart. With LG Electronics. Digitally yours.
Scott Dixon just guiding his way through, trying to keep it smooth over the bumps as he continues on his route here. Up ahead of him, Helio Castro-Neves. In fact, you could see there, looked as though Castro-Neves had a little look at getting past Kenny Brett once more, and it's meant that they've all closed up together again. Kenny does seem to be holding this little group up front. Gilles de Ferran's advantage has grown to 5.6 seconds over Bruno Junqueira. Tagliani then a couple of seconds further back. It's this battle that we're keeping an eye on. Dario Franchitti is clear in 4th place at the moment. 5th position for Kenny Breck, as he is now, look at him, absolutely being pushed around by Helio Castro-Neves.
Yeah, clearly Kenny Breck is struggling at this stage in the game. The gap forward to Franchitti has extended itself now to almost 6 seconds. So that is just getting bigger and bigger, that gap, as Kenny Breck just struggles to hold on to that 5th position under intense pressure from that man there, Helio Castro-Neves.
I tell you what though, they've obviously set that car with not too much downforce on the wings, because he seems to be fast on the straight where it matters there. He comes off that turn 4, and Castro-Neves is right behind him. But as they accelerate down the main straight, he definitely ekes away a little bit. So I think they've set that up not to have too much drag down the straights, and that might be why he's slow around the corners, because he doesn't have quite so much downforce. And Kenny now in the twisty bits is struggling once again to keep Castro-Neves behind him.
You're absolutely right, and interesting trade-off you have to make on this circuit. It's very difficult to pass, particularly because the cars are so closely matched. So if you're fast on the straight, that main straight at the end of that straight certainly is the best overtaking opportunity, and if you can be quick on that straight and pull out enough of an advantage, then it makes it awfully difficult for anybody to get past you.
Well, these two continue their little dice at the moment. Castro-Neves just sliding his way into turn 4. Of course, we saw Kenny make a little mistake earlier on that allowed Dario Franchitti through, and Castroneves is just desperate for Kenny to do it. But again, you see, coming up to the end of that straight, and it's opened up to a car and a half distance between the two of them, and it just doesn't let Castroneves get down the inside.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Look at the whole rest of the track. There's less than the car length between them. Look at that. There's only a couple of feet between the two of them, and Castroneves is trying all he knows to get past, but there is just no way past that shell car at this stage in the game. Kenny Breck is quick in the right places, and he's not put a foot wrong. Well, he put 1 foot wrong, didn't he, when Dario passed him? Since then, though, he's been flawless, and that has been just making life so difficult. It's very frustrating for Elio Castroneves. He has to make sure he knows he's a lot faster than Kenny Breck. He has to make sure he doesn't get frustrated and make a mistake himself.
Here he gets very close up under the rear wing of Kenny Breck. This is where Kenny made that little mistake, but he doesn't do it again this time. And again, Castroneves trying to be as close as possible here to get on the power. But this is where that forward horsepower certainly seems to be effective. The Lola chassis and the aerodynamics on that car managing to draw him away just a little bit. And Elio just cannot get close enough, weaving around a little bit over the bumps under braking there at the end of the main stretch. But again, Kenny defends his position, and that's exactly what Kenny's allowed to do. There's no way that he's going to allow Castroneves through easily. I'm sure if Castroneves gets alongside, then he might give in, but Castroneves can't get into that position at the moment. Up front, it's still Castroneves' teammate Gilles de Ferran who leads. His gap has grown in the last 2 laps. It's up to 7.3 seconds over Bruno Junqueira.
A couple of quick laps there for Gilles de Ferran. He's been lapping basically around about 62.8. 1 minute 2.8 seconds is his average lap time. He's been very consistent at that, but a couple of laps here and there down into the low or mid 62 second range, and that's, as you say, just enabled him to stretch away just a little bit more each lap from Bruno Junqueira, and 7.3 seconds of lead there. Back to Tagliani in third place, another 2.2 seconds. Then there's Franchitti, then Kenny Breck, and this battle here. Breck, Castroneves, there is Scott Dixon and Cristiano D'Amato in that thick of that battle as well. Not too far behind them now is Mo Gugelmin and Roberto Moreno. You can see those two there. They're beginning to close in on this battle as they're held up by Kenny Breck.
Now, interestingly enough, there have been no yellows so far, and I'm surprised at that because we've seen all sorts of incidents throughout practice and qualifying, all going down the escape roads. And for those people who might be trying to get through on one stop here this afternoon, they need 20 laps under yellow flags to be able to get through under one stop. Now, I know some of the teams have been considering it. Talking to some of the team engineers earlier on this morning, they were definitely thinking about planning a one-stop strategy, particularly for drivers who are good on fuel anyway. Well, it's not going their way at the moment because there haven't been any accidents, there hasn't been any yellow, and that means that they're going to be using that much more fuel, and they will then have to make 2 pit stops. So everybody just watching that fuel consumption a little bit at this stage and hoping that their strategy is going to work out to gain a few places later on in this race.
Yeah, I think the fact that there has been no yellows up until this stage is going to be very, very difficult. I'd say almost impossible to reach the finish on just 1 fuel stop. So I think pretty much, I would imagine that most of the teams have decided now, okay, fine, that strategy has pretty much gone out of the window. We better now just go as fast as we can and try and make up ground and use all the available fuel, knowing that we have to make at least 2 pit stops. Well, not at least, knowing that we have to make 2 pit stops.
Well, Gilles de Ferran certainly going for it up front. Here's this battle again between Kenny Breck and Castroneves, and there's 10 seconds now between Kenny and Dario Franchitti, 4th and 5th. Here is our race leader then. His advantage now up to 8.1 seconds over Bruno Junqueira. De Ferran is flying here this afternoon as he tries to take his first win on the streets of Houston. He led last year, but was beaten by Vassar and Montoya to 3rd position at the end of it. This time he wants to take victory. There is Junqueira still driving well, under pressure for his seat at Target Chip Ganassi Racing. Still hoping that he's going to hang on to the drive for next year. 27 laps completed. De Ferran is in control. The Shell car. 30 laps have been completed now by our race leader Gilles de Ferran. It's de Ferran leading, Junqueira 2nd, Tagliani in 3rd, Dario Franchitti still going well in 4th, but then this huge contest between Kenny Breck and Elio Castroneves with Scott Dixon right behind him as well, and then Cristiano D'Amato. Look how close he gets there through turn number 2. He does that just about every lap, just inches separating these two, but can he find a way past? No, he can't. He has not got enough straight line speed compared to Kenny Breck. again out of this turn 4. Here we go, power down, good traction from the Lola, and he accelerates away from Castroneves, and Castroneves must be so frustrated in there.
Yeah, he does. He made a half-hearted attempt a couple of laps ago in a couple of corners time at turn 7. We're coming through 6 now. And this next corner here is, I think, the best chance for Castroneves if he can dive to the inside under braking, but it's not quite close enough. And meanwhile, these two are losing almost a second a lap to the guys in front of them, with Dario Franchitti, the car next in front of them. And that's enabling pretty much the whole rest of the field to close up to pretty much nose to tail, but maybe a little bit more, but certainly no more than a second between any of the cars further back. You can see that string there extending down the back of the picture, and it goes all the way back down effectively to 24th place.
Well, that's right, Jeremy, and this battling group for 5th place, if we look at how far away from the leader they are, they're over 30 seconds now behind Gilles de Ferran. That gives you some idea of how much that clean air that Gilles de Ferran's had up front has helped his cause, and these guys have all been slowing each other down, particularly Breck slowing Castroneves down. Castroneves could go probably a second more faster per lap if he could just find a way past the yellow and white car. I think Team Rahal have played as cleverly as they can. They managed to get a good setup in qualifying. I think they were struggling still to get a good race setup. They were still changing springs this morning, I noticed, during the warm-up. Here we go, Castroneves has another look down into turn 7, and this time he makes the move stick. Kenny cannot afford to clash wheels at this stage, and now you will see Castroneves just disappear, I think, over the next few laps. It'll be very interesting to see how quickly he pulls out an advantage here over Kenny Breck, and finally makes the move stick, and now Kenny's got Scott Dixon behind him.
And as we surmise, he was there in turn 7. That was the best opportunity for Castroneves, and finally he saw the opportunity and he took it brilliantly. A great move there, and already look at the gap he's pulled out ahead of this bunch of cars, and now it's Scott Dixon's turn to try and get away past Kenny Breck.
Right, let's see if we can take another look at this. Very straightforward. Kenny held the middle ground for a while, thought Castroneves wasn't going to try it. He did, and he was alongside enough, and Kenny did the sensible thing and didn't turn in on him, because otherwise that could have ended in tears. But Kenny's in an unenviable position here, Jeremy. He knows he's in a car that's not as fast as these guys behind him. All he can do is try and hold on, not make a mistake, and as soon as he makes even the slightest slip up, he knows he could lose 1, 2, even 3 places in one go.
That's right, and championship points are absolutely crucial to Kenny Breck. He just wants to stay out there, and maybe they can make a change at the first pit stop, which isn't actually that far away, and maybe make a change, make that car a little bit more effective through the corners. It's obviously very good on the straights, but it's not, I would suggest it's probably not turning into the corners particularly well, and that's what it's enabling him. It's losing ground rapidly to the guys in front of him, and he has to make sure he doesn't lose too much time in that pit stop and fall farther down the field.
So we're right on board now with Cristiano De Mata running in 8th position. Let's just quickly remind you, it's De Ferran, Junqueira, Tagliani up front, then Franchitti a little lonely in 4th. Castroneves now ahead of Kenny Breck, Scott Dixon in 7th, ahead of this man, Cristiano De Mata, and then behind him is Maurizio Gugelmin, Roberto Moreno, Tony Kanaan is in 11th, then Christian Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti is in 13th, then it's Tagagi, Fernandez, Nakano, Jourdain and Sevilla, and towards the back of the field there haven't really been many place changes here. You could see them all following line astern as they came down the main straight there between turns 4 and 5, and Kenny Breck trying to keep everybody behind. You can see basically though it is that Kenny Breck car, the yellow and white machine, that is holding up virtually the rest of the field here this afternoon.
It absolutely is almost the rest of the field. Really, the only 2 people that are not part of that stream are Casey Mears, who's fallen away from the tail of Jimmy Vasser, who's running in 24th place, and Max Wilson, who made a mistake a few laps ago and is now 1 lap down to the leaders. But look at that huge train of cars there, and this is going to be interesting now. Is anybody going to get racy and try and make a pass and maybe not make it cleanly and cause some kind of a pile-up? And if it does cause some kind of a pile-up, I think it'd be a big pile-up.
Tony Kanaan in the middle of your picture there. He's holding on to 11th place in the Hollywood car. Driving for Monan Racing. Into the pits comes Patrick Carpentier. After 36 laps, we have our first pit stop. And Carpentier looks like a straightforward stop. They're getting the fuel on board. Just a little bit slow away, but he gets going now. And it looks like a straightforward stop for Patrick Carpentier, who rejoins. Now, lap number 36 this is. And if they're having to make their stops around now, that's definitely going to make it very much a 2-stop race. and that looks like we're going to see the leaders in the next few laps.
Well, that's interesting strategy there, I think, by players' team, because I don't think you really need to make a pit stop just yet. I'm sure they can go quite a few more laps, probably another 5 or 6 laps at least, before they really need to make a pit stop. But they're hoping now that, I think, just judging by the lap times of Gilles de Ferran the last couple of laps, he's down in the 63s now. Could be just coasting along and taking it easy. It could also be the tyres are beginning to go off, and maybe the players' team realise that with Patrick Carpentier. But get him in the pits early, getting out maybe out on a clean piece of racetrack, maybe he can make up some ground on those fresh tyres before the other guys come in the pits, and maybe vault himself up a few positions. So I think already now we've seen the first really of the strategic moves being made by Patrick Carpentier and team players.
On board now with Adrian Fernandez. He's running down in 15th position, chasing after Tora Tagaki. He's got his teammate Shinji Nakano right behind him, and these guys just sort of following each other along at the moment. Fernandez, he's had a bit of an up and down season, loves racing here in Houston because of the amount of Mexican support, and in fact a lot of guests and sponsors here for him this weekend as well. The Mexicans taking opportunity to come over the border here into Texas and give him plenty of support. Here is our race leader, Gilles de Ferran. He's advantaged over 10 seconds now to Bruno Junqueira. A completely unhindered run. There have been no yellows since the start of this race, and 36 laps have now been completed. So it really has allowed de Ferran lap after lap to open up that advantage, and Junqueira way back, 10 seconds behind in second place. Tagliani still in third position, with Franchitti in fourth, and then Gilles' teammate Castroneves in fifth. And just to let you know, over the last few laps since we saw Castroneves overtake and get past Kenny Breck, there is now some 11 seconds between them, and Castroneves is lapping 2 seconds a lap faster than Kenny Breck was. And look at de Ferran here, he's got to get past Casey Mears now. Try not to get too held up. Yep, he gets through safely. But that's interesting, isn't it, Jeremy, to look at that. Castroneves 2 seconds a lap faster than Kenny Breck.
Yeah, fascinating. I was just looking at that myself, and it's very interesting indeed how quickly he is now going. He's certainly the fastest car on the track by quite a long way, is Helio Castroneves, and he's going to be chasing down Dario Franchitti. The gap, though, was it was to Franchitti when he got past Kenny Breck. It was over 13 seconds. He's now brought that down a little bit. It's down to about 8.6 right now.
Well, Gilles gets past Casey Mears. Casey Mears, of course, making only his second Champ Car start. He is nephew of Rick Mears, who ironically works for Team Penske. But there's no problem between the two of them. You're looking here at Michel Jourdain, Servier and Paul Tracy. He is down in 19th position. He's got past Max Papis now. He was behind Max for the early stages, but he's managed to make one place. But, oh, and we've got somebody who's spun and into the wall. Lots and lots of tyre smoke down there. Oh, and it's Moreno. It's Roberto Moreno, who had been running well. He doesn't look as though he's damaged the car. He rejoins and gets going once again. He was running in 10th place, but he's lost I don't know how many places. We'll try and pick that up as he comes through. Who's that behind him? In fact, that's race leader Gilles de Ferran coming up to lap him now. So great disappointment for Moreno, who was looking to score points once again here. And we're looking at Franchitti chasing Carpentier. Oh, and there's another accident. That's Jourdain and Sevilla. Oriol Sevilla up on top of Jourdain's car. That is at turn number 7. We've seen incidents there in the past, and once again problems as two cars have come together, and this surely is going to bring the yellows out, and surely, Jeremy, we're going to see some pretty frantic pit activity coming up. Here comes our race leader, Gilles de Ferran, straight into the pits, and he has to come all the way down to the very far end, which is where the Team Penske pit is, all the way at 50 miles an hour. And then hope they get a good clean stop. Yes, indeed, and a good call there by Team Penske. Get him in right away, and you can see the rest of the field there following in behind. But this is just what they needed. The timing is good for Team Penske. Getting him in pits, get him out again, and get back on with the action. Now, that's interesting. Let's take a look at that. Max Papis came straight back out again. Now, did he stop for fuel or what? That's an interesting one. Gilles de Ferran gets back out. Junqueira, what's wrong with Junqueira? He stalled it. Now, he had these fuel pressure problems, and I think that is absolutely what's happened to him there. He had this fuel pressure problem before they went out for the race, and I think with the revs dropping off, the fuel pressure still not correct at low revs, and that meant that he was in trouble. So big disappointment for Junqueira, losing a position. Here goes Franchitti, getting back out now. Castroneves, I think, has moved up the order, courtesy of all this action, because he hasn't come into the pits just yet. So Franchitti gets himself going, and Kenny Breck also into pit lane.
And yeah, we have finally gone full course yellow, but Helio Castroneves, interestingly, did not come into the pits, nor did Scott Dixon, nor I think Mauricio Gugelmin, and a couple of others perhaps as well.
Big wing change to the front of Kenny Breck's car. You see them twiddling away there on those front wing adjusters. They didn't just twiddle them once, they were twiddling away for quite a while there, Jeremy. And it's fairly clear that he's struggling on balance, and they're trying to cure that as he's sent back out of the pits. Got to be a bit careful coming here out of the pits, not crossing the line as they come onto the track once again. That's the exit of turn 2. And Michael! What has Michael done? I think it's in the pit lane. Is that in the pit lane? I'm not quite sure where that is, but...
Well, I think it is. You know, I was actually going to just remark on that. There was a lot of jockeying for position there down at the end of the pit lane, and it's very tight down there. There is Helio Castroneves, who I think would have led that lap as he came into the pits, and he is now underway. But yeah, I think that pit stop, I don't know whether it's going to cost him time or not. We'll see as he comes out of the pit lane.
There's Michael's car. It is through the pits. Oh dear, that is awful for Michael Andretti. And remember, Michael, third in the championship coming into this race on 125 points. He desperately needed to keep the pressure on the top two. Gilles de Ferran is still our race leader after the first round of pit stops, in plenty of action going on in Houston. Michael Andretti making his way back round, but look at that front. He's got a front wing nose pole there, but no front wing. So after the accident coming out of the pits, it looks as though it's all over, really, for Michael Andretti. It's not going to be one of those drives like we saw in Toronto, where he came through from the back to take the victory.
No, that's exactly what he didn't need. He was in good place in the points here, third place in points, just 22 back coming into this race, but he lost a lot of ground there. Look at you can see where they are racing now as opposed to where they were before the pit stop. Scott Dixon there, he has not pitted at all, and look at that down the bottom there in 13th place, Patrick Carpentier. We talked about that strategy, and look how it worked out. He's made up 9 positions by coming in before everybody else did and getting those a couple of quick laps before it went yellow. And I think it would have been, if it hadn't gone yellow, gone a bit more before they'd all made their pit stops, I fancy might have made up some more ground as well. So great work by Patrick Carpentier and team players as Michael Andretti comes in for that new nose cone, but he's already a couple of laps down and effectively out of contention this afternoon.
Well, that is disappointing for him, but as they go to work to try and get that nose cone off, there they are. They've got the old one off, the new one about to be fitted, all set up, of course. The wings are all set up identically so that if there's a problem, but Michael not at all happy about this situation, and this is really going to hurt his championship hopes. Now, he will come back out. It looks from that last round of pit stops as though Alex Tagliani, one of the main gainers, he's still in third, but Scott Dixon is the one between himself and de Ferran, and Dixon has not stopped yet. Dixon will have to stop within the next 7 or 8 laps, I would think, and that will change things around and bring Tagliani back up to second. Pace car brings them around. You can see that Gilles de Ferran has slotted into position. Michael Andretti just joining in there as well. Our coverage here on Eurosport continues. Let's just take a look at what happened once again to Sevilla and Jourdain, and he just went in too fast, Jeremy.
Yeah, the good news, he managed to get down the inside line. The bad news is he was going in too fast when he got to the apex of the corner, sailed straight across the road and into the tyres on the opposite side. Oh dear. But he was trying to make his move, that's all you can say. He was trying to make a move. At least he tried something, I guess. But if you're not going to get a good result if you don't finish the race. And Aurel Serbia, it's a shame for him because he's had a great run of races in the last, 5 races he's scored points. And he's one of only 3 drivers who have scored points in the last 5 races. So he'll be doing well. A couple of 5th place finishes for that small and new Sigma Autosports team. But there'll be no points this afternoon for Aurel Serbia.
It's interesting to show what happens when it goes wrong, because of course that was the same corner that we saw Castroneves eventually get past Kenny Breck. The same could have happened there, but they both got it right. Castroneves went in fast but not too fast, managed to make the corner. Kenny gave him room, they both made it through safely. It didn't quite work when the other two tried it, when Jourdain and Sevilla tried it. Here we go, now beginning to build up the speed, and we will see the green flag come out as they come out here to start the next lap. Into turn 1, de Ferran has a bit of a buffer zone here between himself and Scott Dixon, because he's got the lapped cars of Michael Andretti and Casey Mears behind him. As look at this, de Ferran now hoping to get away a little bit from Dixon. Behind Dixon then is Tagliani, who's running in 3rd place. So the blue and white car second on the road there. Ignore him in a way, because that's Michael Andretti. Oh, and look, Fernandez is in the wall.
There's Adrian Fernandez. He was running in 14th place. He's spun out there. Not sure whether it's turn 3, I think. And that's a shame for Adrian. Good run he'd had going.
Adrian Fernandez has had some sort of a problem or made a mistake on the restart here in Houston. We had just gone green. De Ferran leading them around. He had a couple of lapped cars behind him. And Adrian Fernandez is now stopped at the side. Now, let's see what happened. Did he get hit? Here he comes. It's his teammate down the inside. Oh, dear, oh, dear. He went straight up over his teammate's front wheel. Shinji Nakano and Adrian Fernandez, the two Fernandez Racing teammates. Dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. And as the team boss and #1 driver, I don't think Adrian's going to be too happy about that.
I fancy you might be right there, Ben. That's certainly a great shame for both those guys. Actually, Shinji was quickest of all on what, Friday afternoon in the wet session. He's been very quick all weekend. Here's an onboard view from Adrian's car. You see up into turn 2 here. It's really, there's no way you can overtake in that corner. It really is not an overtaking place. There's some corners where you can legitimately make a move and, you know, if you can get quite right alongside someone, fair enough, but he wasn't right alongside. It's really not a place you can pass unless you are all alongside the car as they turn into the corner. And Shinji was not in that occasion, if you get my drift. What I'm trying to say is if you're going to make a move, you've got to make it incisively and get completely alongside before the driver on the outside has to turn into the corner. And Shinji on that occasion didn't do it. Adrian turned in not thinking that Shinji was going to make a move in such a dumb place, and exit stage left for Adrian Fernandez. And yeah, you won't be a very happy camper at all when they get back to the motorhome this afternoon.
Well, we've just heard that Michael's incident in the pit lane he was involved with Christian Fittipaldi, apparently. Former teammate, of course, no longer a teammate now, but apparently they got together coming out of the pit. So we haven't actually seen what happened there, but a little bit unfortunate.
Yeah, they tangled a few races ago, didn't they? Tangled somewhere. Where was that? Was it at Road America or Mid-Ohio or somewhere? I seem to remember not too long ago those two had a bumping match as well. Just brain blockage here, but they are pretty good friends. It's not as if there's any animosity between the two, but they're always pretty closely matched in a new and Haas days, and they seem to be together again there apparently in the pit lane. That's not the place you want to go off, but Michael, he is in the race still. That's the good news. The bad news, he is 3 laps behind the leader, and I know he'd have loved to try to get past Gilles de Ferran at that last restart, maybe get one of those laps back, but to get back 3 laps on a street course, that's asking an awful lot.
Well, Junqueira continues round. There are leaders coming through. 2 lapped cars. That's Andretti and Mears. Then Dixon, who's running second. Tagliani. There's Junqueira. He lost a place in that last round of pit stops, and apparently he was keeping the revs up because they had that fuel pressure problem. They kept the revs up, but then he couldn't get it into gear because the revs were so high. Into the pits now comes Max Papis. You know, he did come in when everyone else did, but he just drove through and came straight back out again. Now he makes his pit stop, and I wonder whether we'll see Scott Dixon make a stop as yet. Probably he might try and push it a bit further. If he's definitely trying to get through this race on 1 pit stop, and he'll need to go a little further before he comes in.
Yeah, he will. He'll certainly want to get past the halfway stage in the race, and that will be lap 50. I think 2-hour time limit. We should be okay there with a bit of luck. We've had 53 minutes racing elapsed there. We will stop at the 2-hour limit if we get round to that, but certainly he wants to go half distance, which is 50 laps before he makes that pit stop.
Well, this weekend, of course, Casey Mears driving the WorldCom car for Monan Racing, the car that is normally driven by Alex Zanardi, who had that horrific accident in Germany a few weeks ago, which resulted in the amputation of both his legs. Now, he's still in Berlin recovering, and amazingly now in a fit state to talk to people and joke with some of the drivers. And in fact, Robin Miller had the opportunity to speak to him by phone earlier this weekend. So let's hear part of that conversation with Alex Zanardi.
It's really incredible how much support I got, and I guess my spirit drives me to just look forward, and suddenly I have times where I think, boy, I wish nothing had happened, but it had happened, unfortunately, and so I have to look forward. I mean, I know that I still have a lot of things in my life, and probably it's just a question of time, but I will walk again. So after all, the picture doesn't look that bad. In the recent inspections they did in the surgery room, they found incredible improvements, and not only the infection is gone completely, also the inflammation is almost gone completely. So it could well be that in about a week or so they decide to close it completely and let it just heal naturally. And this would allow me then in another week or so to leave the hospital, which is what I'm dreaming.
Well, isn't it great to hear that from Alex Zanardi speaking earlier this weekend after that horrific accident suffered in Germany. He's still in hospital in Berlin, but should be moving to a hospital nearer home very, very soon now. Just looking at the race recap so far, leader Gilles de Ferran, and he's led the whole way so far. Look at Brian Herta, he's made the biggest move up the field, again courtesy of that first round of pit stops, I think.
Yeah, I fancy that the Forsyth Championship Racing team probably elected not to put a full tank of fuel in that car, and enabled him to make up some track position.
Here we go then, green again on lap number 49, 48 laps in the books already, and Gilles de Ferran will now once again try and get away. We had a restart a few laps ago when we saw the problem for Fernandez. Watch them all through turn 2 safely this time, and let's hope it's a clean one. Oh no, it's not clean, there's been a problem, sir, and one of the Team Green cars, that is Paul Tracy, in trouble. Paul Tracy has made contact with somebody through turn 1 this time, and he's missing part of his right front wing, and he may well have damage to that right front wheel as well, and it's all over for the 1999 winner here, Paul Tracy, the one of only 2 drivers this year who hasn't led a lap, and it was with Herta.
Yeah, he hit the back.
Herta and Nakano it was, and Tracy ran into the result.
That's right. It was, I think, Shinji Nakano once again ran into the back of Herta, didn't he? And they put the two of them sideways, and Paul Tracy absolutely nowhere to go. Well,
that is just so unfortunate, and Shinji Nakano is not covering himself in glory here in the last few laps at all, is he? Tracy is out, and as I mentioned, he has not led a lap in the series this year. One of only 2 drivers not to have done that. Shinji Nakano, ironically, is the other one who hasn't led a lap in this year's championship. Tagliani, meanwhile, has got past Dixon. Now, that's an important move. Here's Dixon. Look at the blue and white car ahead of you. That's Tagliani, and that is for position. Tagliani's now got himself into 2nd place, and perhaps this is evidence of Scott Dixon's rather worn tyres. He's the only one of these guys not to have been into the pits. He's still on the set of tyres he started this race, and I believe that he is now struggling for grip, and he's got Junqueira right behind him.
Yeah, he's also trying to stretch that fuel load as well. He needs to go another 2 or 3 or 4 laps if he possibly can before he makes that first pit stop for Scott Dixon. So he's running first of all with certainly a low tank of fuel, so the car is nice and light, but those tyres are pretty badly worn at this stage. Plus, he's got that fuel mixture turned way down to as lean as possible, so he's well down on horsepower as well.
I tell you, someone else who's lost out is Dario Franchitti. He's just been passed by Cristiano De Mata. So Franchitti has found himself pushed down to 7th place. He was running in 4th earlier on, and now he's down to 7th, so that's not good news for the other Team Green driver. And suddenly Team Green, as well as Team Motorola, the associated team, it's all going horribly wrong for them. Michael Andretti's 3 laps down. Tracy seems to be out of it, and Franchitti's been pushed down to 7th. There is Paul Tracy just limping his way down the pit road, and it does seem to be over for him. Junqueira's hit Dixon! Junqueira's run into the back of Scott Dixon! Castroneves tries to take advantage, damage to the front of Junqueira. Castroneves locking up in his attempts to get past, and more drama here. De Mata's right behind. Look at the damage on that, but Dixon will be furious about that. Here we go, up front, though, looking slightly further back. Castroneves gets down the inside of Junqueira. De Mata tries to as well, and now Franchitti also gets through there. Junqueira realises he's in trouble. No front grip with the damaged front wing, and that has dropped him down. That's exactly not what Junqueira needed. His place under pressure at Ganassi Racing. Talk that Tony Canard might take that place, and Junqueira desperately needed a result here this afternoon. Now he's passed by Tora Takaki.
Yeah, and that was a shame certainly for Junqueira there. Bad mistake. He didn't need to make that mistake. He was going to pass Scott Dixon sooner or later in any case. Didn't need really to press the issue, and that's cost him dearly.
A great shame for the likeable Brazilian who's been under a bit of pressure here, has had 1 victory this year. Take another look at it. Sliding, coming down to turn 3. Dixon on the brakes. Junqueira locks up, hits the back of him. Oh dear, oh dear.
I can't imagine what he was thinking there, because if you look carefully at that, it seemed to me that the guy behind was what, Kenny Breck, wasn't it? He just seemed to pull way ahead from Kenny Breck into the braking area and slammed straight into the back of Dixon. He just obviously missed his braking point entirely, I believe, and just ran into the back of Scott Dixon. A great shape for the Kiwi.
Well, it's actually come at the time that Dixon was likely to make a stop anyway, but of course he lost a lot of time backing up the track and getting out. He now gets out just over the half distance point where he always was hoping to get on his one-stop strategy, and now all that debris being picked up from the track. It's a full course yellow because of all those bits of carbon fibre, and look there, bits all over the place on that car, and it's still shedding bits and pieces. I think we'll have to see him come into the pits. Yes, here he comes into the pit lane. He would have been black flagged, I'm sure, if he'd stayed out there, and they will have to make a nose cone change on that car. Well, Bruno Junqueira really in the wars. You know, there was an amazing occurrence earlier on this weekend where both of the Target Chip Ganassi cars hit each other on the first lap out of the pits in practice, which was remarkable. In fact, it wasn't Junqueira's fault on that occasion. I think it was more Mimo Gidley. He can't get it in gear again because of the high revs. And it's, oh dear, it's getting worse and worse.
I think he's blown the clutch on that car. Yeah, he can't get it into gear, so either a clutch problem or a gearbox problem there for Bruno Junqueira, and that I think is going to end his day.
You know, it is possible, Jeremy, on the down change he was having problems with that car, and perhaps that would have, it doesn't explain it, but it might have added to his problems when he ran into the back of Dixon.
That's true, he's probably been third gear, going down to second into that corner, only down one gear. And you don't really use the engine that much in these turbocharged cars to slow the cars down to the corner. You really do rely on the brakes. There's an onboard view.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a gear change problem.
I wish I wasn't talking there. I was talking at the wrong time. Apologies for that. We couldn't really hear the audio on it, but it looked to me a fairly basic error. Let's have another look at it again from the outside angle at least.
Yeah, I think he just braked too late. From looking at both those views, it wasn't so much a gear change problem as simply a brain fade problem. And he just braked that little bit too late, and it's all over now for him. It's also all over for Paul Tracy. We saw him come into the pits a little while ago after he ran into the back of some other cars at turn one. Let's hear from him.
30 laps of this race just appeared to be so good, so routine, and then it's just been chaos. What in your mind has happened?
It's just so hard to pass, and you know, your restart is really your best opportunity on cold tires. And you know, my problem was Sinji got in the back of Brian, and they both went sideways in the track, and I came around the corner. There was nowhere to go, and bent the suspension, but we lost the gearbox on the way in. So I don't know what happened with the gearbox, but all of a sudden, after that restart, the gearbox went bad.
Couldn't be a much tougher weekend for a guy who's won here in the past. Sorry to see you out, pal.
That's okay.
So it has been a very tough weekend indeed for Paul Tracy, but he'll just have to regroup. There's another race next weekend, Laguna Seca, another one of Tracy's favourites, so he'll have to hope for better things there. Junqueira out of his car. Gilles de Ferran is still our race leader. So the car's beginning to pick up speed, and it goes green once again. Gilles de Ferran is still our race leader, but there has been a big shake-up in the order because quite a lot of cars have taken advantage of the last yellow to come into the pits and refuel. So let's try and keep you up to date. Dario Franchitti there, behind a couple of lapped cars. He's actually second overall now because he hasn't been back into the pits. De Ferran hasn't made a second stop. So these two are the top two. Dario Franchitti's got Shinji Nakano ahead of him. He's a lapped car. Now Mauricio Guterman just behind there. He's third. Tagagi's fourth. Then it's Moreno and Vassar, and they are the first of the cars to have made a second pit stop.
That's exactly right. So Patrick Racing had made a great move here, I think, as Dario Franchitti tries to get way past Shinji Nakano. Better be careful there, Dario, judging by the last couple of laps. So let's set the scene again, though. Those top four, De Ferran, Franchitti. There is Dario, smokes up down the inside. We made it move there at turn 7. That was a dicey one, but he made it past to Dario Franchitti. So De Ferran, Franchitti, Guterman and Takagi have made only one pit stop. Pretty sure they're going to have to make another pit, so let's go down the pit lane. Bruno Junqueira.
We'll have to see, but looks like that I had a clutch problem and I couldn't get out of the pits. On the first pit stop, I struggled to get out, and the second one I had to stop.
Can you tell us about the contact you had with Dixon?
Yeah, I don't know. You had cold tires, and he brakes early there, and I just hit a little bit his back. Maybe I just misjudged that he was, I don't know, with old tires or something like that. But my car was difficult to brake because of this clutch thing, but that just doesn't justify. Just made a mistake. But on another hand, he was saying I had to get by him really quickly, and I don't know. So,
Yeah, I know you're very frustrated. Sorry you're out early. Gary?
Well, Michel Jourdain has made his way back. He was involved in one of the first incidents with Oriol Servia. Now, what happened in that situation where we saw the two cars stacked up there in the corner?
Yes, Gary, it's a shame, you know. The car was very good at the beginning of the run, but my rear tires were just going away. I think the set of the rear tires were doing all the job, you know, and they were just gone. And Oriol, I mean, was a little faster than me. He tried to pass me, went into the tires, and I had no room, and I just went under him.
Glad you're not hurt. Thank you.
No, thank you.
So Michel Jourdain also back to the pits, but just watching Moreno making up a bit of ground. Well, not making up ground so much as getting past the lapped car of Shinji Nakano there. Moreno now running in 5th place overall, despite that spin. Yeah, that's right, despite the spin we saw earlier. He's 5th, and Jimmy Vasser, who was running 24th earlier on in this race, he is now up into 6th position, all courtesy of some pretty clever strategy going on at Patrick Racing.
That's right, they came into the pits on lap 45 during the previous yellow to the one we just had, so they're going to be struggling to get to the end of the pits lane from there, but they may well be able to do so, and if they are, that'll just be a brilliant move by Patrick Racing.
Yeah, full economy mode for those two, but it is going to be a tough one for them to get all the way to the end. De Ferran and Franchitti, the top two, they will need an extra stop. Let's go down to the pit lane once again.
What was your version of what happened out there?
Well, what had happened is I tried an impossible move. The reason why I tried the impossible move, there was 4 laps that Michel was blocking me like crazy. Every straight was impossible. He was every bit of a straight, he would block. He was looking more at the back than at the front. And, you know, car should penalize, on the rule book says you cannot block, so they should penalize. And they didn't penalize, so at the end I tried the impossible move that I showed was impossible. I mean, I had to brake very close to the wall, there was no grip, and I went straight. It was my mistake, but you know, it's because I got frustrated behind a car that was just blocking all the time, and you know, especially in a racetrack like this, which is difficult to pass, if you block, there's no racing.
Thank you, Oriol. I know on a tight street circuit, sometimes it's hard to keep that frustration from coming out in anger. Thank you.
Well, very honest roundup there from Oriol Servia. You know, you noticed when that caption came up, Jeremy, only his 3rd non-finish of the year. That says a pretty impressive record for the Spanish driver.
Yeah, and for that new Sigma Autosports team, certainly.
So Franchitti we're looking at here, now finding himself, you know, I was saying earlier on, disappointment for Team Green, Tracy out, Andretti out. Franchitti had dropped to 7th, and now all of a sudden he finds himself up in 2nd position because he has not made a 2nd pit stop, unlike many of the cars he was racing against, the likes of this, well, De Ferran has only made 1 stop, but Castroneves, De Mata, Kenny Breck, they were all in that group, Tagliani as well, they were all in the group with Franchitti, but they find themselves down in 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th places, having made their 2nd pit stop. But remember, these guys, De Ferran and Franchitti, will have to make another stop before the checkered flag.
Yes, they will. And you know, last year Gilles de Ferran really lost this race as a result of the strategy by Marlboro Team Penske. And you know, it's awfully difficult to make a pit stop when you're in the lead of the race, particularly at that juncture when it's really touch and go whether you can get to the end. It's a big gamble if you come into the pit lane, but by not coming into pit lane, that could cost him dearly. So he's going to have to go now as fast as he can to pull away from the rest of the field, particularly those guys that have made what will be their last pit stop, and hopefully he'll be able to pull enough of an advantage to when he comes in to make his pit stop, he will still be able to rejoin in the lead, or at least in a high position.
Well, De Ferran always likes it when he can attack, and that's what he's got to do now, and he really does have to go for it. If you consider where Tagliani is at the moment, Tagliani's some 16 seconds back. Now, there are some other guys nearer who may be a threat, but may well not have enough fuel. Tagliani certainly should be able to make it through to the end, I would think, on the amount of fuel he's got. 16 seconds at the moment. That's not enough for De Ferran to have to make a pit stop and still be able to get back out in front.
It's not, but he's certainly going much quicker than the other guys. Well, he's pulling away at a second or more per lap, so another 5 or 10 laps, he should be in good shape there.
So we've got plenty to watch out for here. Can De Ferran pull away enough? We're going to find out over the remaining 40 laps. On board with Adrian Fernandez here as he recovered from that accident that he suffered with his teammate Shinji Nakano, but it did, of course, put him down the order somewhat. and he finds himself now, Fernandez, in 20th position, but he's still out there, still attacking, still seeing whether he can make up some ground, and an opportunity perhaps to score some points still at the end of the race. Tagliani, meanwhile, has just overtaken Max Papis, so that's an important move for him. That's put him up into 8th position. We see our race leaders come through. De Ferran and Franchitti, both of them absolutely flat out now. A 61.8 second lap from De Ferran last time around. Franchitti still had to get past Michael Andretti, and he did a 62.0, but I think we'll now see them both lapping very, very quickly over the coming laps.
Yeah, and Dario's looking good here. If he can stay right with Gilles de Ferran, then he's looking good. I think these two are going to be able to pull out enough of a gap. If it doesn't go green, it doesn't go yellow again within the next, say, 5 or 10 laps, there should be, I think, just about enough of a gap ahead of the rest of the field, at least for those guys that have made that final pit stop, to come in, take on fuel, maybe take on fresh tyres and get to the end of the race.
Franchitti's actually just set the fastest lap of the race on that last lap, a 61.603 seconds. So De Ferran not sort of escaping at the moment, because Franchitti's right there and pushing hard, and this is more the sort of performance we would expect from Franchitti at this Houston track, a track he always seems to go well on. Last year he made a mess of it on the first lap, put it in the wall, and that put him out of the event. For the previous 2 years he'd been very much a pace setter, and now he is chasing De Ferran as they both try and open up the advantage over Maurizio Gugelmin in 3rd, Tagaki, the Japanese driver, in 4th, Moreno is in 5th, Vassar 6th, then Gidley, Tagliani, Papis and Castroneves. Here we are back on board with Adrian Fernandez and a whole gaggle of cars just ahead of him, getting into a little bit of a mess there. Adrian Fernandez going past the lapped car of Casey Mears as this battle towards the back of the field continues. Gilles de Ferran and Dario Franchitti, our 2 leaders, are busy trying to open up as much of an advantage as they can, and Franchitti showing that Team Green have got a race set up that's working now. They seem to be struggling, but now he's matching the pace of Gilles de Ferran.
Certainly is, and he's turning some very quick laps indeed. He's got past Michael Andretti. He's now put in the pressure on Gilles de Ferran. You can see there Gilles glance across into that left-hand mirror to see how close that Team Green car is behind him, and it's not very far at all, is it? It's less than a second, and that gap has come down quite substantially since we went green. It was 3.5 seconds and a couple of lap cars between them when we went back to green flag racing, and you can see what the gap is right now.
You can see De Ferran trying hard as he lays some rubber down there on the exit of turn 7 through 9 and 10 now, the last 2 corners of the lap. This will be to complete 64 out of the 100 laps completed now by race leader Gilles de Ferran. A 61.3 from De Ferran, a 61.5 from Franchitti. Look at Team Green's history here in Houston. Out of 6 starts for both Franchitti and Tracy, they've had 2 wins, 1 second place and 1 fourth. And look at the laps led figure too, 158 laps led here between those 2 drivers. So it always seems to go well for them, although there was that one year, of course, when Tracy almost took Franchitti off. Barry Green wasn't too pleased about that.
Yeah, that's an understatement, isn't it? But you know, look at that. There is the man. There is the man. Gilles de Ferran, the pole sitter, and he's trying to get away that championship lead from Kenny Breck, regain that championship lead from Kenny Breck, and he's answering Franchitti here. He just set the new fastest lap of the race so far, 61.319 for Gilles de Ferran.
Just talking about the championship leader, Kenny Breck, he's down in 12th place at the moment. He's behind Castroneves in 10th, D'Amata in 11th, then it's Kenny, then Christian Fittipaldi 13th, Tony Kanaan in 14th. And they are having, what they need is a yellow. Here we are, this is this group. There's Castroneves, there's D'Amata right behind him. And you'll see Kenny Breck in the yellow and white car not far behind, as Moreno has dropped down the order in the last lap. What's happening to Moreno? He's in trouble. He's got some sort of problem. You can see him there. Look, Moreno about to be passed by Breck, and Roberto has some sort of mechanical problem, I think, Jeremy, because he's dropping further and further down the order here. Yep, look, Breck's got past. I think Christian's going to go past him any second. There's something wrong there with Moreno's car, and he pulls right out of the way to let everyone through.
He does, and that's a shame, because he'd had that spin, of course, over there in turn 4 earlier on. There is some kind of a gearbox problem. He obviously got gears there, because he's able to get back out of the way. Once he'd got out of the way, the other cars get back onto the track. Not sure whether he's going to come into the pits or what.
Ryan Herter going through past Casey Mears, but that's not for position. That's lapping the youngster, the 23-year-old Casey Mears, having his second outing in a champ car. This time standing in for Alex Zanardi. There's Kenny Breck then, championship leader, down in 11th place at the moment, and hoping that a lot of the cars up ahead of him will drop back down the order, but it's not going to be a good afternoon here for Kenny. He hasn't had the sort of pace that they've shown, certainly on many of the ovals. On some of the street courses, he's had plenty of pace, but the luck hasn't gone his way on this type of track. Nevertheless, he's championship leader at the moment, and De Ferran still has that task of opening up enough of an advantage up front to enable him to make another pit stop and still come out ahead. Here's Jimmy Vasser, and he's got Mimo Gidley right behind him. So this is the battle for 5th place. And these guys, who have really gained on strategy, now hoping they've got enough fuel in those cars to make it through to the end. Tagliani right behind them in the blue and white car. He's been one of the fastest out here this afternoon, and he's now looking for a way past. Up through turn number 4, onto the straight. Now Mimo Gidley, there he is. He's had a bit of a tricky weekend, just listening to the radio.
Yeah, he's been really off the pace of his teammate Bruno Junqueira, and he certainly didn't do himself any favours when he hit the back of Bruno Junqueira as they went out of the pit on their first lap on Saturday morning in a practice session. But this guy always rated well. There's Tagliani though, great move to the inside. There goes Tagliani to take over 6th place from Mimo Gidley, and Adrian Fernandez, who's actually had a lap down, takes advantage and also nips past. But I was just about to say that Gidley is a very good racer. He's been running well this afternoon, good strategy by that team. He came in on lap 47, I think it was, so he may or may not be good to go to the end of the race. He actually came on lap 47. He and Max Papis came in together. I think they should be, they're certainly, he'll be running a pretty lean fuel mixture here, so he's giving away some horsepower to these other guys, but he's got himself up in the top 6 or 7, and he's going to try and maintain that to the end of the race.
So he continues on his way. There are 2 leaders, Gilles de Ferran and Dario Franchitti, lapping almost identical times last time around, and they are coming around to complete 68 laps out of 100 this time around. The gap between them just about a second. Gugelmin still in 3rd, Tagaki in 4th. Those 4 have not yet made their second stops. Jimmy Vasser holds on to 5th. Welcome back to Eurosport's coverage from Houston. We're on the street track around the downtown area, and quite a battle going on. Gilles de Ferran is our race leader, 70 laps completed. Dario Franchitti's right behind him. There's 2 of them still charging, trying to open up enough of an advantage over everybody else here that they can make their second stop and still get out ahead. Now, this man you're riding with, Jimmy Vasser, is in 5th place, the first of people who've already made 2 stops. But Jimmy is still marginal on fuel. Behind him in 6th is Alex Tagliani, who's probably best placed in terms of fuel, having made 2 stops. And then it's Gidley in 7th, Papis in 8th, Castroneves is 9th, D'Amata 10th, Kenny Breck 11th, Fittipaldi 12th, Canaan in 13th, ahead of Carpentier, Dixon, Herta, Nakano, and Adrian Fernandez. So, De Ferran, another new fastest lap for Gilles de Ferran, a 61.247. And that's another great effort from him as he continues to open up this advantage. Not so much over Dario, who's staying with him 10th for 10th, but certainly over the likes of Vasser and Tagliani, who've made their second stop. Let's go down to pit lane.
Today, the Vision team was doing a great job. We had a very quick car. We're playing strategy really well. We put ourselves in a position to win this race, and unfortunately we had some gearbox problems at the end of our day. I lost not only 5th gear but also 3rd, and it's impossible the way I couldn't drive anyhow without those 2 gears. But it's very, very unfortunate. We're looking forward for a good result here, but every time I tried to change a gear, I was never sure if it would go in or not. And it has caught me by surprise a couple of times, and I even did a spin with it. Every time that wouldn't go in gear and then suddenly would go in gear, you would lock the rear wheels, and I had many moments like that, but it was not possible at the end without 2 gears.
We were just talking about pit stop strategy. Did you and your teammate Vasser have enough fuel to get to the end?
I think I had. Jim McGee asked me to do a 2.2 fuel mileage. I was getting more than that at the end there. He said, if you keep doing that, we're gonna make it. So we're looking really good. But it's one of those things. It's not supposed to be today. The Vision team will come back and we'll be strong next time.
All right, we'll hope it works out for your teammate, Jimmy.
2.2, referring to 2.2 miles per gallon. That's what he was trying to achieve. Doesn't sound like much, does it? 2.2 miles per gallon, but that's pretty good in Champ Car terms.
Well, it is. They have their allocated fuel on the basis of the minimum fuel consumption of 1.85 miles to the gallon. So if it's, let's say it's a 200-mile race, divide that by 1.85, that's how many gallons you get to go through the race. You start off with 35 gallons in the car, the rest of it in the pit lane fuel tank, and you top up with fuel as you need it. But the reason why the fuel consumption is so poor is two reasons, really. Number one, these engines rev to well over 16,000 RPMs. They produce well in excess of 850 horsepower. The other reason is the fact that they use methanol fuel, which is less efficient than petrol or gasoline. And because it's less efficient, you need more of it to produce the same amount of horsepower. But the reason they use a less efficient fuel is it's a lot safer. It doesn't catch fire with the same intensity as does the high-tech fuels.
Now, I wonder if Jimmy's getting good consumption figures. You know, Roberto Moreno's well known for his ability to get great fuel consumption on just about any kind of track. It does come down to driving style to a large extent. The guys who are good on fuel consumption tend to carry a bit more speed into the corners and tend to be a bit smoother on the throttle coming out of the bends. Now, Jimmy has a bit more of an aggressive style. He tends to chuck the car in and boot the throttle. Not perhaps quite so fuel economy minded. And I wonder if Jimmy's going to get those consumption figures. If he can achieve it, and of course if there are some yellows to help him, he may well achieve it, then he's in great shape in this race. Although, looking at De Ferran and Franchitti, they have now built up a 36-second advantage over Jimmy Vasser, and that begins to put them into the situation that if they now make a stop, they could well squeeze out ahead. It is a slow pit lane here, so they'll want to make a little bit more than that, I think.
Yeah, it is a long pit lane here, you're right, and the long front straightaway, then they have to sort of jiggle their way through a parking, well, actually sort of a building site now to rejoin the racetrack after turn 2. So it is, as you say, a long and tricky, tortuous pit lane. You'll lose quite a bit of time, but I think they're pretty close now to being able to get out in front and still maintain their lead after making that pit stop. This yellow, there hasn't been a yellow in the last, 20 laps or so, and that's great news for those two.
Yeah, it's good. Oh, and down the escape road goes Michael Andretti. Well, of course, he's way out of this race already. He's probably just made a little mistake down there at the end of turn number 5. That's going into turn number 5. And he gets back on safely. So no major problems. 25 laps to go here. The last 25 laps to go, and Gilles de Ferran, Franchitti and Gugelmin, the top 3 at the moment. Gugelmin running well, but he also needs to make a second stop, and he's not able to go nearly the same sort of pace as these two Reynard Hondas that are leading. Tagagi, we were looking at him a moment ago, the other red and white car of Tora Tagagi, number 5. He's going well. There's 27-year-old Japanese driver. Led a lap in Germany a couple of races ago and had his best ever finish in 6th. And Tagagi going well here, but also needing to make another pit stop. So the former Formula 1 driver drove for Tyrrell and for Arrows, and now doing a pretty good job for Walker Racing here as he is looking at making a second stop. Tagliani still in 6th ahead of Gidley, Papis and Castroneves. Lots of drama to come here on the streets of Houston. Now let's keep an eye on the progress. Dario Franchitti has rejoined. There it is, Tagliani, so he is behind Tagliani. Now Gugelmin is out. Yes. Gugelmin's out. Now that's a surprise.
He is. He suddenly slowed down a lap before going into turn 1, and Tora Takagi went past him to take over second place. And clearly he was slowing at that stage. He just limped it round the pits. Michael Andretti is off yet again. That's at least the 3rd time this afternoon. Just a dismal day for the Team Motorola entry of Michael Andretti, but not so this man, Gilles de Ferran. He's piling on the coals here. He's closing up onto the tail end of those on the lead lap. That being Brian Herter, the blue and white car ahead of him.
Yeah, it is, but he needs to draw out that little bit more. As Franchitti proved, it wasn't quite enough because he came out behind Tagliani and behind Vasser. So it looked like he got out ahead of Tagliani initially, but Tagliani obviously got past him on that lap that he got out. It's gone yellow. Full course caution. Well, this won't make a huge difference. De Ferran needs to come in surely at this lap around. Yep. He will be coming in anyway, so it won't make that much difference. But, of course, everyone else might be slowing down a bit, so it might still help him a little bit. Let's see as he comes into the pits. Now has to go all the way down to the end of the pits. Will De Ferran get out in front after this second pit stop? Or will Jimmy Vasser still be out in front of him? Well, it's going to be very, very close. It's gone yellow. That won't make a huge difference unless the pace car has already picked Jimmy up somewhere.
Yeah, it does. It's a good point, which I don't think it will have done. So I think it won't make a huge difference. There is stop competing for Gilles Lefebvre, and I think they're looking good. There is Roger Penske. He looks around, looks over his shoulder to look back towards the final corner to see where the other cars are. And there's a couple of them coming into pit lane. There's Max Wilson. He's a lap down. Don't need to worry about him. There is Takagi. He's the other guy who has yet to make a pit stop. There goes Takagi.
Right, so he's back out. De Ferran is back out, and I think he should be very secure as he comes back out. Just watching the leaders come back past. Tagliani coming through, Franchitti coming through. Vasser has dropped down, so Vasser had to come in for another pit stop, but De Ferran has managed to get back out. There is Jimmy, in fact, coming back out, back into the exit of the pit lane, and that means he didn't have enough fuel to make it. That was good news for Tagliani, but De Ferran has done enough. He had pulled out enough to get out in front, and there he is. He is still our race leader. Great stuff from Team Penske. Great stuff from Gilles de Ferran to open up enough of an advantage. A quick splash of fuel should be able to take him through to the end now.
Yeah, we don't know actually why the yellow flag is waving at the moment, but it doesn't really make. It certainly hasn't really made any difference to the complexion of this race. Gilles de Ferran, I believe, was far enough ahead. Come yellow or green to make that pit stop and get out again on the track. That's what we've been talking about for the last 20-30 minutes. It turned out to be the case, and he is out in the back, still at the lead of the field. Meanwhile, at the back of the field, there's Michael Andretti getting out of his car. Look how the body language there. We saw in the background Mauricio Gugelmin's car being pushed away as well.
So Gilles de Ferran is our race leader. Tagliani now finds himself back up into second place, but he will have Franchitti right behind him. And Franchitti has been showing his pace in recent laps. I wonder whether he's going to be able to find a way past. Mimo Gidley, suddenly what was turning into a pretty horrible weekend is looking good for him because he's now fourth. And Toro Takagi has rejoined the fray. And it could still be a good result for the Japanese driver, being shown in fifth place. Max Papis up to sixth as well, ahead of Castroneves in seventh, D'Amata in eighth, and Kenny Breck, ninth position for Kenny Breck. And that is very bad news indeed for the championship leader, with Gilles de Ferran leading this one. Fittipaldi is next up, then Canaan, Carpentier, Scott Dixon outside the points. And well, let's just think about what's happened so far here. De Ferran has led throughout this race, but behind him there's been some huge changes. Look at the biggest move. Mimo Gidley, 19 places he's gained.
Yeah, he came in, his last pit stop was a couple of laps after Jimmy Vasser. Jimmy Vasser with Roberto Moreno came in on lap 45 for their second pit stop. Memo came in along with Max Papis on 47, so he's trying to go 53 laps on this final tank of fuel. He needs all the yellows he can get. It's certainly worth a gamble by Target Chip Ganassi Racing. Their other car is out of the race, having started on the front row. Memo Gidley started on the second, 2 rows from the back. But they have to take any gamble they can get. If there's enough yellows, maybe he can get to the end of this race without needing another splash of fuel, in which case, brilliant work by them. There's another shot of Gilles de Ferran coming out of the pit lane after taking on service, and you could just see briefly, I think there was no cars anywhere near him, so he was able to get that stop completed. That was Matt Johnson's crew there from Marlboro Team Penske. We saw Roger Penske, the strategist, looking on the wall to make sure there was no one near him, and he is looking so good. Let's get down the pit lane and Michael Andretti.
Michael, what are your thoughts about this championship? Now down to 3 races to go, and obviously not scoring today.
Really hurt a lot. I mean, realistically, it's going to be tough now unless Gilles and Kenny have a problem. It's going to be really tough.
You had a brake problem, I understand. It began to snowball when they replaced the nose. Was one of the brake ducts or calipers torn off?
Yeah, I mean, but it was my fault. Going out of the pits, I hit the wall. I was going side by side with Christian and around the outside, and I was in the slippery stuff, and I couldn't turn. It just went straight into the wall, bent my wing, and broke the brake duct. And so then when I went back out, I just had no right front brake duct, and it was only a matter of time before the brakes went away, and they did.
Better fortune next week at Laguna. Thanks, Michael.
Well, a very down Michael Andretti after a disappointing day here. Third place in the championship coming into this race, but it's all going to change with these results. De Ferran, of course, looking to gain the most here with the victory. Tagliani not really featuring in the championship battle that much. He's quite a long way down, 15th in the series. But Franchitti, this could be a real saviour for him. He's 6th in the series, needed a good result here today. The fact that it's De Ferran who's going to win this isn't going to do him a huge amount of favours, but it will help him hugely to get a podium finish and maintain his championship hopes and just keep them alive over the next few races. There are some people here today whose championship hopes are pretty much going to disappear. Scott Dixon is one of those. He's down in 13th place at the moment, and if he doesn't score any points with De Ferran winning today, I think his chances will be completely out of the window, although he should still be on target, of course, for the Rookie of the Year honours. It's also going to be tricky for Patrick Carpentier. He's 8th in the championship at the moment, but looking to score just 1 point in 12th position here this afternoon. So, you know, we're getting into that crucial phase of the series. Just 3 more races after this one, offering a total of 66 points if you win every race, lead every lap, or lead most laps, and get all the poles.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But certainly a lot of ground for Cristiano D'Amato and Dario Franchitti to make up. Dario Franchitti coming into this race was, 58 points behind Kenny Breck. So he's going to make up some ground on Kenny right now. If he can finish in the top 3 there, that's 16 points for second place, 14 for third, 20 of course for the race winner, plus the 1 for the pole and for leading row stats. We're getting ready for a restart.
Yeah, all set now to go on lap 84. De Ferran begins to put the power down. Tagliani chasing him. Then you've got the lapped car of Max Wilson, and then it's Dario Franchitti who's actually third. Pace car lights are out, but the pace car's not out of the way yet. That's a surprise. Here they go, beginning to pick up the pace as they come out of that last corner. Green flag flies, and we're into the final 16 laps now of the Houston Grand Prix, and De Ferran has the position, the track position that he wants. Tagliani chases in second. Tagliani's been fast all afternoon, but will he manage to find a way of challenging race leader De Ferran? I somewhat doubt it, but who knows? There are still plenty of potential problems. There'll be cars to lap later on in this stint if they get some good clear running. Max Wilson in there. Franchitti needs to get past him quickly.
Yes, he does. He is, a couple of laps down. Max Wilson in 18th place. We've got 19 cars still running. Casey Mears is just behind, not too far behind in the order. But Dario Franchitti, as you say, he does need to get past that car of Max Wilson as quick as he can. Now, down into turn 7, is Max Wilson going to leave the door open? Yes, he does. Down goes Dario Franchitti. So now we have the top 3 cars to pretty much together on the road, and now it's a battle to the finish for Gilles De Ferran, Alex Tagliani, and this man Dario Franchitti.
Well, this will re-energize Franchitti. I wonder if there's any chance of him still being able to close up on Tagliani. Remember, Franchitti has been one of the fastest on the track here this afternoon. There's Mimo Gidley, desperate for a good result himself, also under pressure at Team Target Chip Ganassi Racing for his seat. And he could really do with a strong finish. His best result of the year, that second place in Cleveland, which was only his second outing for the team. He also had a 5th place finish on the oval at Chicago, but 4th place here would suit him very, very nicely indeed. Max Papis is in 6th position, and that's a very promising performance after qualifying so far back. Always seems to go well here, in fact, in Houston in the race. Castroneves under pressure from D'Amato. 7th and 8th. There's Kenny Breck in 9th place and Fittipaldi in 10th.
Yeah, we saw Kenny Breck struggling in the early stages of the race. He continues to struggle now. He's not on the pace of those other guys, but he is still in 9th place, and any points at this stage in the race are good for Kenny Breck.
One more oval to go in the series. That's where Kenny's been so strong, but that will be the final race at Fontana. Still another road course to go. That's Laguna Seca, proper permanent racetrack. That's coming up next week. Then another street track circuit as well, Surfers Paradise in Australia. And you have to say that Team Penske will be favoured on both those circuits, Laguna Seca and Surfers Paradise, with the performance they've shown on circuits throughout the series this year. And Kenny Breck is really fighting a rearguard action here in the championship. Desperate for that Lola chassis and Team Rahal to really sort that car on the street and road courses. I'm hoping that they can get decent points in California and in Australia, but he knows that he's under pressure now that De Ferran is going so well. Here is Castroneves just ahead, but Castroneves to maintain the pressure on his teammate in the championship, also really needed a podium finish today.
Yeah, he needs to finish ahead of him, really, if he can. He's certainly going to be good at Laguna Seca. Castroneves always shines there, but so, of course, also does Gilles de Ferran. If the race would have finished now, this is how the points would look. We would see Gilles de Ferran back into the lead of the championship with a 12-point margin over Kenny Breck. There's, you can see there, Castroneves some way back in third, and Michael Andretti loses just one place, but loses a lot of ground to Dario Franchitti.
But also notice that it would put from 6th D'Amata, from 6th place, those guys in the championship would then be out of any chance of winning the title mathematically, because 66 points would be the maximum you could score after this race. D'Amata would be 66 points behind, and therefore would no longer have any chance of taking the title. We're really into that part of the series where we start to discount potential winners of the championship, and it's still about de Ferran and Kenny Breck in particular, if their places stay where they are now.
Look at that gap, the way that gap had come down there between the blue car there on the left of the screen, this one here, that's Alex Tagliani, and right behind him, chasing him down, is Dario Franchitti. Dario Franchitti got past that lap car of Max Wilson, has now closed up onto the tail of Alex Tagliani. Tagliani, of course, is still looking for that elusive first champ car win. It's another great drive here today, but he doesn't seem to have anything at all for Gilles de Ferran. Can he hold off Dario Franchitti?
Well, we shall watch that over the remaining 12 laps. Just 12 laps to go here. Beautiful weather conditions in Houston this afternoon after cloud and rain affecting the practice and qualifying days. It's been ideal conditions, not too hot, mid 70 degrees Fahrenheit, a nice cool breeze blowing as well. So absolutely beautiful day for the fans that have turned up in good numbers here this afternoon to enjoy this 18th round of the championship. It's a physical track though, and despite the lack of humidity compared to some previous years here in Houston, these drivers have been wrestling with the cars for a long time. The race will be getting on for 2 hours by the time it's finished, and that's hard physical work. These guys have earned their living this afternoon.
They certainly have. Of course, they do work out. Every single one of these guys works out extremely hard, and perhaps none more so than Memo Gidley. He's every time you speak to the guy, every time I try to call him on his cell phone, I've known him for a long time, he's always on the in the gym somewhere, working out, getting ready as back then for his opportunity in the championship.
You make a run on this guy.
I think that was Chip Ganassi. I'm not quite sure who it was on the radio. I didn't quite hear it clearly, but he said you can use the overtake button. So clearly, Memo Gidley, they are saying, has enough fuel to get to the end of this race. So what great strategy by Target Chip Ganassi Racing. And his race engineer there is Bill Pappas. I think it was probably Bill on the phone there on the radio to Memo Gidley saying you've got enough fuel, so try and get past that lap car. Maybe you can track down these two. The battle was second and third place between Tagliani and Franchitti.
Well, that would be good news to see Memo Gidley really get a decent result coming towards the end of the season. Tagliani there in the blue and white car, still doing a great job in second place. Remember how many laps he led in Vancouver not long ago, only to have a gearbox fail on him. 68 laps it was, he was out in front, looked to be set for his first victory. Well, Tagliani doesn't look like he's going to win today. Looks like these guys are going to once again. Roger Penske on the right of your picture there, keeping a close eye on proceedings as ever, as they look to try and take back-to-back championship titles. You know, it had been quite a while since the glory days of Team Penske, until last year, until they brought these two Brazilians onto the team as the drivers, Gilles de Ferran and Helio Castroneves, and suddenly, with those two drivers on board, taking the Reynard chassis, using the Honda power, everything came together for them again, and they have been the team to beat since that point. Here we are, still a battle for second place continuing. Tagliani at the moment doing just enough to fend off Dario Franchitti.
Yes, he is. Dario, he's going to want he needs as many points as he can get. As we said how many points he was behind Kenny Breck coming into this meeting, and still he'll be a long way behind with just 3 races to go. He needs every single point he can get. He wants to get past Alex Tagliani. He knows that Tagliani is not going to be in contention for the championship. He also knows that because he is not in contention for the championship, Alex Tagliani is going to try and stay ahead just in case Gilles de Ferran for some reason will fall by the wayside. Tagliani wants to be ahead of Franchitti in that case, still looking, as I said before, to get that elusive first champ car victory. This is his 37th start, the sophomore driver, his second season in the champ cars with team players, came out of the Toyota Atlantic Series, and Tagliani, another very impressive drive this afternoon, Ben.
Yeah, it's great stuff. You know, particularly, Jeremy, when we consider what a traumatic time he had racing in Europe, that awful accident between himself and Alex Zanardi, and then I don't know about you, but I felt that Tag was a little bit off in Rockingham, perhaps still affected by that a little bit. I have to say he's been in great form here this weekend, and hopefully he's able to put that behind him and now get on with the programme here in Champ Car Racing.
That's exactly right. He's had a good car all weekend. Bruce Ashmore is the technical director now at Team Players. That's Players Forsyth Racing, and he's brought a lot of expertise and knowledge to that organisation, as has race engineer Tony Sicali, who works with Kelly Lauren and the other guys on those crews, and they've really brought these cars to the forefront really all season long. The first 5 or 6 races, both he and his teammate Patrick Carpentier absolutely no problems, all sorts of problems in those first few races, but they were fast, and the second half of the season, boy, they come on strong, but not quite as strong as Marlboro Team Penske.
They're so consistent, aren't they? They are so strong, particularly on this type of track, on the street courses. They have been so fast all year long. It hasn't always gone their way, but in Long Beach and Detroit it went extremely well for Helio Castroneves, and now De Ferran wants to take his second victory of the season. He won at Rockingham last time out, and now he wants to repeat that victory with a win here on the streets of Houston. Make up for last year as well when he led so much. Castroneves just squeezing his way past Papis a moment ago, and in fact Papis lost momentum, and De Mata has been able to get past him as well. It was a couple of corners later, I think, but De Mata has moved up. So Castroneves now in 6th position, and Cristiano De Mata is in 7th place. Papis has dropped back to 8th. Kenny Breck still in 9th. Christian Fittipaldi in 10th. Then it's Canaan and Patrick Carpentier. Do you think Team Rahal will ask Max Papis to get out of Kenny Breck's way, Jeremy? He's only 1 place ahead of him now.
Yeah, yes, that's a very good point, and I would imagine he probably will do. Yes, I think that would be certainly a smart move by Team Rahal, and I think it'd probably be a smart move by Max Papis, having taken Max Papis. He took Kenny Breck out of the race at Mid-Ohio, and that didn't go down at all well. There was a lot of talk.
Oh, tag! He's done it wrong! Oh, Tagliani! What have you done just when you look so strong for 2nd place? He's made a huge error. It's put Franchitti up into 2nd place, and Tagliani has thrown away a great opportunity of a good result here this afternoon. He was under pressure, but he did not need that. Oh, that is such a shame for the young Canadian. It's all gone wrong for him, and look, too much damage on that car. He's got, I don't even know he's going to make it back to the pits here. Take another look.
You're awfully fast there. That's the corner at the end of the back straight. Just got on the pound a little bit too early there into turn 5. The car slid sideways, and he wasn't able to keep it out of the wall. A bad mistake from Alex Tagliani. Yeah, he was under pressure, but oh dear, look at that. What a shame for Tagliani and those Team Players organisation.
Oh, that is tragic. That is such a shame for Alex Tagliani. What a pity after such a strong drive here this afternoon, and after everything he's been through in the last month. You know what it would have meant to him to get a 2nd place finish here, and the disappointment is just almost too much for him to imagine how he must be feeling at the moment. The yellow flags at that area of the track, bits and pieces all over the road.
He really needed the points. You know, he was down in 15th in the points, but a good result here could have put him up as high as 12th. And 4 laps to go there. We can hear on the radio there from Roger Penske to Gilles de Ferran. 5.6 is the gap from 1st to 2nd place, with Dario Franchitti chasing as hard as he can.
So Franchitti in 2nd place now, heading for one of his best results of the season on the track he won at in 1998 when the track was first used. He beat Alex Zanardi on that occasion. It was a great win from the Scotsman in horrible conditions, thunderstorms interrupting the race, and De Ferran just being guided now as he counts down the laps. 5 laps to go. That's all it is for De Ferran to take his 2nd successive title in the 2001 season. It took a long time for his first win to come this year. Last time out at Rockingham in the UK, and that dramatic last lap victory. You know, Jeremy, a move like that, when it comes off, gives you so much confidence, doesn't it? And De Ferran seems to have been able to take that confidence and put it into use here.
Yeah, absolutely true. You see, even though he's got a big lead, he's still marching on. He's setting a very quick pace at the front of the field. 5 laps to go now by Gilles de Ferran in the 62.4. He was lapping pretty consistently in the middle 61s up until that incident with Tagliani. There's probably some debris on the track there, so I think he's wisely cut his pace a little bit. And Dario Franchitti, now he sees his chance. He steps up his pace. The gap comes down from a bit over 5 seconds to 4.7 that time around, but with only 4 laps to go, it's a long way to go for Dario Franchitti.
Well, as you imagined, Jeremy, a moment ago, Kenny Breck is now ahead of Max Papis, so that may well be the team getting onto the radio there and telling Max to move out of the way. Oh, but I don't know, because Max has lost another place to Christian Fittipaldi. So whether Max now has a problem or not, I'm not quite sure.
Sorry, I think he's struggling with his fuel. You know, he came in with Memo Gidley, in actual fact, on lap 47. So I think he's really turned that fuel mixture down. He's struggling to get to the end of the race without needing a splash and go fuel stop.
Our race leader, Gilles de Ferran, coming around this time with a couple of corners to cross the line. Just 3 laps to go this time. And de Ferran, oh, and they've got problems. We've got Scott Dixon facing the wrong way and a very bent-looking motor car. He's going to block the track if he does that. Dear, oh dear, what is going on here? He's going to block the track for everybody else here. Where is de Ferran? That's the next question. Now, you don't want de Ferran to come around. You remember what happened to Montoya here a couple of years ago? He came around in a good position to win the... There is de Ferran, and thankfully, he's out of his way. But Montoya hit Castro Neves' car here a few years ago, and that really hurt him as he tried to wrap up the championship early. But Dixon thankfully gets out of the way. It was about the widest place on the track, so there probably would have been enough room either side of him. But, well, that's a great disappointment for the New Zealander, who's not going to score any points here this afternoon.
He's not, and that's a shame. He was battling there along with Patrick Carpentier and Jimmy Vasser, and I'm not quite sure what happened there, because Tony Kanaan suddenly lost a couple of places in that fracas. Whatever happened down there, Kanaan lost a couple of places. This man's lost a lot more, and here's a replay now. You can see there, he just gets on the power. It's getting slippery here. It's late in the day, a lot of rubber laid down, a lot of perhaps fluids on the track, and he just got on the power a little bit earlier. So that thing with Tony Kanaan must have happened somewhere else.
There was Fernandez behind him. They were battling for position, and I think he was just trying to do something about it. Let's take another look. He defended a little bit into 4, a little bit offline. Might have got a bit of muck on the tyres there, Jeremy, because he was a bit offline. Then when he got on the power, that a little bit of muck on the tyres didn't give him as much grip as he expected, and that put him in the wall. That shows you how accurate you have to be. And at this stage in the race, if you get offline just by inches, you start picking up the marbles, and suddenly you've got a lot less grip than you think. 1.5 laps to go. That's all for this man, Gilles de Ferran, to take his 2nd victory of 2001 and continue on his path to defending the title. Well, it's been a great couple of weekends for the Brazilian. Astonishing performance at Rockingham in that battle with Kenny Breck. But here,
plus 5 seconds. 1 to go, plus 5. Nice and easy, plus 5.
Here it's been a case of dominating from the front. He started in pole position. He opened up a 10-second advantage over Bruno Junqueira in the early laps.
Plus 5.4, plus 5.4.
Managed to do it again in the later laps when he had to open up a gap enough to get that 2nd stop in. It's been a perfect afternoon for de Ferran.
Nice and easy, said Roger Penske there on the radio to Gilles de Ferran. I don't think Gilles will agree that it's been easy, but it certainly looked that way. He's driven a brilliant race there. And of course, Roger Penske is just exhorting him to take it easy on this last lap. Don't throw it away on the last lap. You've done all the hard work. You've had an absolutely brilliant drive, and he's looking at a victory now. His 2nd of the season. Of course, he's 2nd in as many races, and this is going to do his defense of the championship so much good.
People are standing up in the grandstands opposite us here on the start-finish straight, ready to applaud this man, Gilles de Ferran, who is going to come through to take his 7th career victory, his 2nd win of the season, and the all-important points that will put him ahead in the championship. Getting the congratulations from the team. Roger Penske delighted. There are 3 races to go in this series. 2 of those should favour Team Penske in particular, and Gilles de Ferran is now at the back at the top of the championship table.
Yes, a super drive by Gilles de Ferran. Great strategy this time from Roger Penske there. He never shows a heck of a lot of emotion, does Roger? He's very rarely, but he will be delighted, and this man will be thrilled with his performance today. It really was absolutely perfect, and Dario Franchitti there, great delight for him to finish in 2nd place.
Good result for Franchitti, but what about Mimo Gidley in 3rd? Great result for him and for Target Chip Ganassi Racing, and Tora Tagaki, his best ever finish in 4th. Castro Neves a good effort in 5th ahead of D'Amata. Kenny Breck only 7th. Fittipaldi 8th, Max Papis 9th, Carpentier 10th, then Jimmy Vasser and Tony Kanaan scoring that final point. So not a great day for Kenny Breck on this occasion. He's done enough to still stay in the battle, but he must be nervous about those races that are coming up.
Yeah, he's got to have some good result at the next couple of street course races. Road course next weekend at Laguna Seca, then to Surfers Paradise, and then Fontana for the California Speedway finale, Ben.
Well, it's all to come, isn't it? Laguna Seca will be just next week, and De Ferran will be hoping to further extend this lead. Just 10 points it is over Kenny Breck, but it's certainly becoming a two-way battle at the moment between these two. Castroneves will be fast at Laguna Seca, but he will need those two really to start having problems if he's to have a chance of taking the title. De Ferran's done everything required of him in the last two races. 2 straight victories, and I'm sure he'll be looking forward to Laguna Seca next weekend. Dario Franchitti and Mimo Gidley will join him on the podium and celebrate the Houston Grand Prix here. I hope you've enjoyed our coverage. De Ferran is certainly the man to beat in the coming races. From Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw from the street track at Houston, looking forward to your company again next time out at Laguna Seca. We'll say goodbye for now, until next time.
Kart. With Hasseröder, the German premium beer.